The morning bell had not yet rung when Anna slipped through the doors of Veltara Academy's biology classroom and chose the second seat from the back, close enough to the window to watch the courtyard, far enough from the front to avoid being called on first. She set her bag down quietly, folded her hands on the desk, looked at the whiteboard like any other 16-year-old on a Tuesday morning. Nobody noticed her. That was, of course, the point. Professor Kane arrived at exactly 0800, the way he always did. A tall, narrow man with the distracted energy of someone whose mind lived 3 thoughts ahead of his mouth. He taught xenobiology at the Academy's integration wing, which meant his students were a mix, 40% human, 60% from 17 different species across the galactic compact. He prided himself on running a classroom where no student felt alien. He had been doing this for 11 years. He thought he had seen everything. He scanned the room as he set his case on the desk. Most students were half awake. The Lyrathi twins in the front row were reviewing holographic notes with their secondary eyes. A Dovari boy near the window was feeding himself slow sips of nutrient paste through a tube. Ordinary Tuesday. His gaze landed on the new girl in the second-to-last row. Anna, transfer student. File said, origin, Earth. Age, 16 standard years. Status, civilian. He had not yet spoken to her directly. The lesson that morning was on adaptive musculoskeletal evolution across high-gravity environments. Kane pulled up a projection of a Creathian bull, a creature from the moon Creth 4, known for calcium-reinforced tendons and bones dense enough to shrug off a standard rail slug at close range. Can anyone explain, Kane said, advancing the slide, why high-gravity organisms consistently develop redundant cardiovascular systems rather than simply increasing heart efficiency? Silence. The Lyrathi twins exchanged a glance. Then, from the second-to-last row, a quiet voice. Efficiency fails under sustained load. Redundancy survives it. Kane looked up. Anna had not raised her hand. She was not looking at him. She was looking at the projection, at the cross-section of the Creathian bull's chest cavity, with an expression he could not immediately name. Not boredom, not enthusiasm. Something more specific than both. Correct, Kane said slowly. Can you expand on that? Anna's eyes moved to him, briefly, then back to the projection. A single optimized system breaks at peak stress. 2 average systems take turns. In sustained high-gravity environments, prolonged exertion, multi-day hunts, constant atmospheric pressure, redundancy is the only strategy that keeps you alive long enough to matter. The classroom was quiet. Kane noticed the Dovari boy had set down his nutrient paste. That's an unusually practical framing for a theoretical question, Kane said. It's not theoretical, Anna said simply, and looked back at the board. After class, Kane kept her behind, not as punishment, but because a small, insistent instinct told him to. The other students filed out. Anna waited at her desk with her hands folded, patient in a way that didn't feel like patience. More like stillness. The kind of stillness, Kane thought distantly, that a thing learned when it had to be very quiet for very important reasons. Your file says you're from Earth, Kane said. Yes. Urban district? A beat. No. He sat on the edge of his desk. I asked because your answer in class, the framing around multi-day hunts, suggests hands-on familiarity with high-pressure predator ecology. Most Earth students who come through here have textbook exposure at best. Anna looked at him. Her eyes were light brown and entirely level. Which part of Earth? Kane asked. Northern continent. Interior. He pulled up his mental geography. Northern continent. Interior. That narrowed it considerably. The reclaimed zones, he said, keeping his voice careful. Adjacent, Anna said. Adjacent. Kane set that word down gently in his mind and did not press on it. The reclaimed zones were what the rest of the planet called them. The people who lived near them had other names. After the collapse events of the 2190s, when genetic drift, bio-accelerated climate shifts, and 3 separate containment failures had transformed roughly 30% of Earth's northern landmass into something the Galactic Compact's ecological classification system formally designated a Class 4 Deathworld subsector. The interior zones had become something no tourism board would ever touch. Megafauna with redundant cardiovascular systems. Apex ambush predators with reactive camouflage. Fungal networks that could sedate a human in 4 minutes through skin contact. Atmospheric CO2 pockets that shifted with the wind. Humans still lived there. Some by necessity, some by choice. Some because they had been born into it, and survival was simply what you did before breakfast. How long? Kane asked. Anna tilted her head slightly. How long what? How long did you live adjacent? She considered the question like it was mildly interesting. Until I was 14. Then my family moved to the coast. I took the academy entrance exam a year later. Kane did the arithmetic. 14 years in the interior zones. 14 years of the thing that produced that stillness, that practical frameworking of redundancy and sustained load and multi-day hunts. Do the other students know? He asked. No. She paused. There's no reason they would. Does it bother you, being here? The environment is considerably safer. Anna looked at the window for a moment. The courtyard outside was green and calm, full of students from a dozen worlds moving between classes without checking sightlines, without pausing at thresholds, without the unconscious 360 sweep that Kane had now noticed she performed every time she entered a new space. It's different, she said. Not bad. Different. She stood, picking up her bag in one smooth motion. No excess movement. No wasted energy. The Creathian bull, she added, almost to herself. We have something similar in the interior. Bigger. Faster. Doesn't have the calcium reinforcement, though. She almost smiled. Not quite, but the edges of it. We had to work around that. She walked to the door, paused. Professor. Yes. Your classification of the Creathian bull as an apex predator, the compact system uses that designation, I know. But it's prey on its home moon. There's something bigger there. I looked it up last night. She nodded once, as though confirming something to herself. The classification system assumes the largest organism in a sample frame is the apex. It doesn't account for things that are good at not being seen. She left. Kane sat alone in his empty classroom for a long moment. Then he pulled up the Galactic Compact's ecological database, searched Kreth for, and found that Anna was correct. There was indeed a predator on Kreth for that the survey drones had classified as a grazing herbivore for 11 years before someone noticed the population statistics didn't add up. It had been recategorized 4 months ago. Kane stared at the screen. He thought about a girl who had spent 14 years learning, in the most immediate possible way, that the largest visible organism was rarely the most dangerous one. He thought about the way she had sat in the second-to-last row, back to the wall, clear sightline to the door. He thought about the stillness. Somewhere out in the galaxy, 17 species called Earth a Deathworld. Said it with a mixture of horror and cautious fascination, the way you might describe a star that burned too hot and too bright and had no business producing anything that could survive it, let alone thrive. They were not wrong. Kane saved the database entry, closed his case, and headed to his next class. He made a note to himself. Do not call on Anna first. Do not assume she needs help. Do not mistake quiet for absence. And then, because he was a scientist and precision mattered, she is not a student who knows about death worlds. She is a death world attending school. In the courtyard, Anna found a bench in the corner, back to the wall, open sightline across the quad, and pulled out her lunch. Around her, students from 17 species went about their ordinary Tuesday. She watched them, unhurried, and ate. The sun was warm. The air was clean. Nothing here was trying to kill her. She thought she might, eventually, get used to that.